This is part 2 of the workshop Arguments and Thesis Statements. Be sure you've already viewed the video for part 1, as well as the trailer for Speaking in Tongues. It might be helpful to keep the Voices in the Conversation PDF handy during this section. Okay, so we're working through the process of academic inquiry and listening to many voices in a larger conversation. Our spark is the documentary Speaking in Tongues, which we watched as part of our Culture, Racism, and Alienation course. We finished watching the film, and we're like, woohoo! Bilingual education, it's the future. So we write this statement. From our woohoo bilingual education stance, we do some research and find Richard Rodriguez, a native Spanish speaker, who feels that bilingual education creates conflicting identities and prevents students from assimilating. Maybe we're not feeling his woohoo bilingual education anymore, so we revise our working thesis statement to acknowledge the importance of being bilingual, but also to acknowledge the complexity of the issue. Going deeper into the conversation, we find Miriam Marquez's Why and When We Speak Spanish in Public. We read her account of speaking Spanish with her family in public places and how speaking Spanish in public is not mutually exclusive with understanding that English is important to get ahead. We understand her argument to be that being American is not solely about the language one speaks. So we revise our working thesis statement. In this second revision, the first clause in red is a nod to Richard Rodriguez. The text in green is a reflection of Miriam Marquez's voice. And the text in blue is inspired by the documentary Speaking in Tongues. The next voice in the conversation is the ACLU and its briefing paper on English-only laws, which helps us understand the varying effects that such laws have across the country. This information is important to our argument, so we revise our working thesis statement again. In this third revision, we leave the first sentence alone. The first part of the second sentence in orange reflects our takeaway from the ACLU source, while the second part of the second sentence remains a nod to our first impression about what it means to be an American citizen in a global society. The fourth and final voice we consider as part of our academic inquiry process is the political advertisement featuring the Pledge of Allegiance, which makes us think about patriotism. It also makes us think of Miriam Marquez's statement that language should not be a litmus test to gauge American patriotism. So we narrow our argument from the more general being American to the more specific idea of patriotism seen here in pink. Everything else remains. In this process of academic inquiry and multiple revisions of our working thesis statement, we've really engaged in a conversation related to bilingual education, listening to different voices, considering those voices, and developing our own argument based on all of the information provided. Just look at how far we've come. This concludes part 2 of the workshop.